G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Michelle Prince from Michelle Prince in Dallas, Texas, USA. Thanks for your time today, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with how we know each other. So we both use the Podmatch service to find guests for our cast, or to be a guest on a cast, as you are today. Great service that we've been using for a bit over a month.
Yeah, we've been using it for a couple of months too and been pretty happy with it. So yeah, glad we connected that way.
Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So I have two parts to the business, but it's a speaking and training business. So I do a lot of keynote speaking, training for corporations, things like that. I also own a publishing company. So it's part passion, part it's turned into the biggest piece of our business is helping people to write a book, publish a book, market a book. And so they kind of intertwine, but the goal of both sides of the business is to help people to find their strengths, leverage their story, and use it to build a bigger platform.
Yeah, great. And how did you start out?
My career started working for Zig Ziglar, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with who he is, but
I'm a big fan of Zig. He's great. He passed away, didn't he?
He did. It's 6 years. Actually, this month it will be the anniversary of that. But yeah, so I started my career. That was, working for him was an incredible experience. I ended up leaving there to pursue software sales and go climb a corporate ladder. And, and I was quote unquote successful doing all the things I wanted to do, thought I wanted to do. And it really just over time, after about 13 years, I started to think, gosh, is this it? Is this all there is? Starting to have a family. And one of the things I learned from Zig, and that was, motivating people, inspiring, encouraging people was so much a part of my DNA that I just wanted to do something in that arena. So to make a long story short, it was a little bit of a journey for me, but then I finally decided to write a book in 2009. I'd been thinking about it for years, but in 2009, I did it. And it was kind of an accidental start to a business because I wrote a book to tell my story, mostly for my kids. But what happened as a result is it literally opened up a full-time business of speaking and training and coaching and doing seminars.
Great. So then people approached you about needing help to either for public speaking or to get books written.
So it started with my first book was a personal development book called Winning in Life Now, and Zig wrote the foreword. So initially the calls I would get were to come speak at conferences, locally all over the US. I would also get asked to do one-on-one coaching and things like that. But as I was out speaking, the questions, I always get several questions after doing a talk. One was always about Zig. What was it like working for him? Tell me more. But the other question was, how did you write your book? Or tell me about, how do I write a book? And it was so organic, Troy, that I never sat down and mapped out a business plan to have a publishing company. But it just organically started with me sharing, okay, this is how you do it. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And then more people started asking. And before I knew it, I was doing a seminar 4 times a year, 3-day event to teach people how to do that. Wow. Because everybody has a story. And that was really how that part of the business happened.
Yeah. And what year did you start and how old were you when you made the jump from corporate?
In 2009 is when I officially started my business. And initially I was still working in corporate because, again, I wrote this book. My intention was to check a goal off my list and share it with my kids someday. But it just almost immediately, the book was published in March. We launched it in June. I was speaking all over the place that fall. And then it just kind of kept going from there. So it happened pretty quickly. The publishing company, we didn't officially start until Q1 of 2010. So it's just been just over 10, 11 years now. So it's been going on for a while. And I was, age-wise, I was about 35.
Right. Yep. Great.
About that. I have to do the math.
Yeah.
I was a lot younger.
You have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth?
Yeah. So I'll be straight on, initially I started a business that I loved, and I saw this opportunity and I went for it. And I love speaking and feeding into people. I knew nothing about starting a business. And I'll be honest with you, my head was in the sand. Let me just do what I love to do. Let me speak and let me coach, but don't make me have to do a P&L or anything like that, or systems, for goodness sakes. I don't want to do that. Well, as you know, that can only last so long. So before my first 2 years in business, I racked up over $80,000 in debt trying to figure things out, or hiring people to do things that really should have come from the top down. So I made a lot of mistakes my first 2 years. I read a great book. I think read it before that, but it didn't really hit home until I was desperate.
Yep.
And that was Michael Gerber's The E-Myth.
Yeah,
And
it's my favorite book, and I recommend people starting out, but particularly wanting to grow a business. That's the first book you should read.
100%. I wish I would have read it the 2 years before, although I'm not sure I would have then jumped like I did, because I was following my passion at first. But, that realization of, and, I had the heart to want to help people. But the truth is, if you're not making money, you're not helping anybody. So I got really smart. That's when I started hiring my first people to help me. And now my first people to help me were in the accounting side of things. And then we started creating systems. And then I just started, bringing in different people on the team. But I just realized it would never grow if I had to control everything. Yep. And I was winging it. So I stopped.
And it's good to identify your weaknesses and things you're not passionate about, like the systems and the accounting, and then hire an A player in that corner and let them focus on that. And you can get on with what you're great at and really enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the best money I ever spent. Even back when I didn't have the money, that was so important to me, because I knew I could learn it, but I didn't have that desire to get in depth. And I just realized I need help in this area. So.
Yep. So the full-time equivalents now across the two businesses, you clearly started just on your own, so one FTE. And what would the full-time equivalent be now?
Yeah, so it was just me for a while, especially those first 2 years. Across both sides of the company, we have a fairly large team, most of it falling on the publishing side, because there's a lot of different players that have to come together to produce a book. So I have project managers, and we have editors, cover designers, layout designers, and then we partner with companies for printing and things like that. And then on the speaking and training side, it's more marketing focused. So I have folks that help me with social media, podcasting, booking things, and then of course looking for speaking opportunities.
Yeah, great. So how many would that be roughly now across the two?
Total between the two, probably about 15.
Great.
And yeah. And like I mentioned probably before, with on the publishing side, it's very project driven. So It depends on what the needs are in any particular quarter, but it ebbs and flows. And right now it's crazy.
That's great. That's great. About 2 years in. So in the last 10 years, you've gone from just yourself to now a team of 15 across those two businesses. That's wonderful growth. Well done. When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
Well, that's a great question. I would say initially it had nothing to do with my numbers. And I know that sounds crazy from a business perspective. I felt like I succeeded when I first launched and was really finally jumping into what I knew I was good at and I knew I was passionate about. And so that was success to me, and it started to take off. Where I felt really good was about 5 years into the business, after getting a hold of all of the, the debt I mentioned to you, paying off that debt, bringing in some key people, more strategy side of things. I invested a lot, and it is truly one of the best investments I made into help. I invested in mentors, masterminds, and I just, rather than recreate the wheel and figure it out on my own, I wanted to shorten that learning curve. So big investment in that, and going from probably from year 2, 3 on through to, to today. I still do a lot of that.
Yeah, very smart. What does success look like to you?
From a business perspective, I love what I do. I love, love, love helping people to figure out their story because everyone has a story. I love working with business owners because when a business owner understands that their story is their business card or their book is their business card, it's pretty awesome. So success to me is continuing to do that in some capacity. But truly, I want to scale. This is now. So we've been in the season of, I'd say, growth with the publishing company for the last 10 years, but you get to a certain level where it's like straight on, and then you kind of start to plateau, still giving a lot of opportunities, but I'm ready to scale it. So for me, I would say in the next 5 years, I have some big growth goals to ultimately position it to sell, truthfully.
Yeah. Right. And so any idea on like doubling the team? Is that, you have a number roughly?
That's a great question. I know it's going to take more headcount on more sales and marketing, probably. Although we have some, but I don't know the answer to that exactly. That's kind of where I've been working. I have some partners and some people on the board that we've been going through EOS and a bunch of other things to kind of build out what that's going to look like. So, but that's actually been our initiative over the last couple of months, is really sitting down and putting the pencil to it and figuring that out.
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's with every time I think that I'm at a level where I know what I'm doing and I understand it, I get to a different level where it's like, okay, I've got a lot more to learn in this.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Right now, well, two things. One, I do truly believe, not just because I do it, but I do believe building your platform is the most important thing right now. And I think personally, having a book is one of the easiest ways to build that authority. It's a play on words. My last book was called The Power of Authority, and it's, you can't spell authority without author. So I do believe there is that. But right now, podcasting, as you know, it is, if somebody were to ask me if you could do anything right now, I'd say get on podcast. I would say either have your own or be a guest on podcasts, because more and more people are moving away from, obviously, email marketing. It will always exist.
Yep.
But email, even social media, I think we're a lot, disenchanted with a lot of it more lately. But podcasting is continuing to rise. Audiobooks, same. So if you're going to write a book, be sure you have that audiobook, because people are listening more and more, and partnering, and what value can you bring to somebody else's community?
Yep.
Instead of just trying to build your own from scratch.
How did you fund your business? Clearly you started off with debt.
Well, let me tell you. So I'll be totally straight on this. My husband, when I first started my business, we had young kids, we were not at a place financially to just, quit my job and do it and just go for it. So I made a promise to him. I was like, oh, I got this. Don't worry. It's not going to affect us in any way. So credit card is literally what funded my business in the beginning.
Yep.
Not sustainable, right? Now I'm very sales oriented. So I'm one of those people like, okay, I need to pay off this much this month. What can I go sell? And so it worked. But then, but I really have always felt pretty strongly like I did want to self-fund it. My husband had another business, and he did get investors and all that. And I see a lot of value in that. However, I also saw a lot of challenges with that. So I wanted to figure out how to do this on my own. So I literally in the beginning bootstrapped it. And then I do have a partner who is that got more involved several years in, and he's not a managing partner, but he's definitely more and helped to back some of that.
Yep. As in they put investment in?
Yep, a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Wow. Yes. Actually, I would. I would change things a little. And, I'll be honest on this too. I've considered if I should, to scale, take on some of that, some investors possibly, because I do think there's a huge opportunity in not just publishing, but the whole platform building, finding your stories. Everybody is wanting to tell their story. So I do think there's something there. But I would also use more funding for technology.
Yeah.
I was in software for years, so I get that whole model. And I do think that would be, it's not my skill set, but to have the funding to hire the people to create the technology to support the industry, I'd say yeah.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
I've had so many. I mean, and that's just the truth. If anyone who's in business has had no issues, then
Yeah.
somebody's not telling the truth.
I love correcting that myth when people say, "Oh, you work for yourself. It must be so good. You don't work that many hours, or you get to choose which what hours you work, etc." And I quickly shoot that fallacy down and say it's bloody hard growing, let alone starting.
Yeah, you choose to work more hours, and in most cases for less money than you could if you were in a high-paying corporate job in the beginning, especially. So. That's why you have to have that passion. But the first thing I mentioned, the debt, that was hard. That was really, really tough to navigate out of that. But I took a different turn. So one thing, and this is more personal, but this was a detour for me. So as I started to get control of the systems, I read the e-myth, and then I just poured into figuring out, well, how is everyone else doing it? I don't want to recreate the wheel, and investing in those masterminds and such. I found myself doing everything I could possibly do to build the business, starting communities, coaching, doing all the things that everybody tells you to do. And I don't regret it, but my business kind of went in a different direction. And then I found myself doing things I could do and not the things I was best suited to do or enjoyed doing. And I think it kind of got me off track a little bit. So after a little bit of time, just in being so spread thin too, just, kind of going over here and then going over there and then writing the next book and then building this and that, it was very stressful. And so I stopped a lot of things, believe it or not. And my business grew as a result of me doing less.
Yeah. It's easy to keep yourself busy, but that busyness can really mask the fact that a lot of that stuff, what you're doing is not adding any value. It's just keeping you busy.
Yeah. And just because it works for someone else, just because someone is suggesting you do it, does not mean it's the best thing for you or your business. You really have to go back to, why did you get into your business in the first place? And for me, it wasn't to just travel around the world all the time and be gone from my kids all the time and be so, spread thin that I couldn't ever work on the business. I was only in it.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Marketing and sales. Now that does come more natural to me. I love that. So maybe that's why I gravitate toward that. But making relationships and partnerships that are aligned so we can kind of, grow together, rising tides, raise all ships type of thing. But, again, maybe I chose that because I'm more inclined to enjoy that side of the business more.
Yep. What have you enjoyed least about managing the fast growth?
Oh, should I even say managing people?
I was going to say people. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. I love people. I'm actually a certified human behavior consultant. And so I do the DISC model human behavior. I do this for clients. I get it. I know how to tell people how to work with people,
yep.
but managing and hiring and firing and all of that stuff, it's just a totally different animal.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of mental energy. And I it would be so much easier to just abdicate and say, okay, go do this, and then never actually manage. But
that's the reality of businesses, big or small. You need management. Yeah.
Yeah. Leadership for sure.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Well, because I'm sales and marketing driven, I love to see the revenue growth. I love to go back and look year after, I do the comparisons and all the P&Ls and everything. So yeah, that part of it. But I also love seeing the growth of a team. I mean, we've had some folks who have been with us for many years, and just to see the we're a small team, but it is to see people grow and have confidence in what they're doing. And even if it's a part-time thing, just we've had some really great relationships develop.
Out of interest, pre-COVID, was your team all based around Dallas, or you had some remote, or mostly?
No, in fact, I was adamant when I started my business in 2009. I did not want to have a local business. I wanted to have a remote business. I was working in corporate at the time, and I was a remote employee for a software company. So I knew
Yep.
Anything that you could do in person, you could do online. And this was in 2009.
Yep.
So from day one, every single person I ever brought on the team, nobody was in, I mean, I can think of through the years, maybe I had one or two people that were like an admin that would help me locally, but
yep.
everyone else, in fact, different countries. One of our project managers was based in Europe, Romania, Philippines. We have folks in Florida. I mean, we've had people all over.
Yeah, great. What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
When I first started, because I started things based on passion, I thought, the more I just do what I do and help people, I'd be willing to do, I would always say I would do this for free. I love this so much. I would do this for free. But that was a big shift for me because I realized that if I really truly wanted to help people, I couldn't do this for free. And so that shift of you have to put value and you have to make other people invest in themselves in order to grow. And that may sound silly to some people listening, but I didn't start my business to be in business. I started it to make a difference. And so that was a shift for me. It didn't take long for me to figure it out that wait. And the more money you make, the more people you help. And so you just got to think of it that way.
Yeah. What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Well, I'm big on time management. My second book was actually called Busy Being Busy, but Getting Nothing Done. And it was just all about, we all get 24 hours in a day. What are you doing with it? Some people are wildly productive and others aren't. So I love time blocking. I'm very big on boundaries and time blocking. I love time blocking where, you have certain activities. We all have a huge to-do list, but every day or every week looking at and carving out 45 minutes, 60 minutes,
yep.
And just blocking it out. And then the other thing I'll add to that is identifying your golden hours, or when are you mentally at your best?
Yep.
Figure it out and protect those hours, more than anything else, because those are the hours you need to be writing, creating. Mm-hmm. And most people don't do that.
Yeah, no, they don't. And, I'm a big time blocker and I batch things together and theme my days. And particularly, and I've got a rule, generally it's no morning meeting rules because that's when I have my greatest energy and focus. So I do heavy work or deep work in the mornings, and then meetings are in the afternoons generally for me in podcasting. I assume you've read Cal Newport's book, Deep Work?
I have not. I've heard of it, of course, but I have not read it.
You'd love it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will read it. I have a rule that when somebody recommends a book, I buy it instantly on Audible. I do. I really do. And I have so many. Usually it's Audible because I can do that when I'm driving, but I will definitely get it.
Yeah, I'm the same. Big Audible fan.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. growsmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Sure. In the beginning, my first, after the accounting and all that, my first hire was an assistant, essentially a virtual assistant, because they weren't here locally with me. And that was, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't really know how much effort it would take. And so some of my mistakes were underestimating how much time something was going to take. So, okay, I need you to work on this project for 10 hours or 20 hours or whatever it's going to be a week, and then not really being clear, going back to my own challenge of managing people, me not being clear on my expectations and just kind of expecting people to read my mind.
Yeah.
Were some of the early on challenges. I feel like now, I like to have a very specific, expectations, task list. I do love to do reviews. In the beginning, I didn't. And even if I was, not happy with something, I would maybe say something, but I wouldn't necessarily bring it up consistently in a quarterly review or a 6-month review or a yearly review. And so I'm much, much better about that, more systematic on those things.
Yeah, I love that Peter Drucker quote, communication is what the listener does. It's our responsibility to make sure that the recipient understands what's in our mind, Yeah.
Yeah. And based on, personality style, a lot of the folks that I bring on I'm hiring people that are not my personality. So while I might be a impulsive, spontaneous thinker, a lot of the people I hire are very analytical, and they're very, methodical, and they need structure and they need expectations. And so I understand that a lot more now. And I try a little bit harder to make sure I document things and have those processes in place before I bring them on board.
What are some things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I've always seen, and maybe this is just something that's come natural to me. I love people, so I can always see the good in someone. And so I'm big on, don't just get on a call and just talk business. And maybe to a fault. Sometimes like I said, some of my analytical ones, maybe they don't want to give me all the details of their weekend, but I make a big point of making people feel like I appreciate them. I can't do this without you. In fact, that's something I've said, whether they're part-time, full-time, whether they're project-based, I can't do this without you. And so I always want people to know that they're appreciated and valued. And maybe it's like you treat people the way you want to be treated. When I was in corporate, I wanted to know that as well. So, but that's how you build culture of people that like get your vision and your mission. And the other thing on that is sometimes realizing too, who's not going to be a fit.
Yes.
And fire fast is what they say. I've had, I wish I would have done that a couple times a little sooner, but.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's all about learning though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Well, I would say I had to learn that through the years, but I'm big on boundaries. And what I mean by that is, so when I started my business, my kids were both in elementary school. They're now, we're now empty nesters, and they're in college and out of school now, but I just didn't have a choice. I had to figure out balance pretty early on in order to juggle being a mom, still having my software job in the beginning, my husband, all of these things. So setting boundaries is something I really recommend. And what that means is figuring out your lifestyle. So for me, and back then especially, my kids, every night they had a sports practice or an event. Weekends, we were on a soccer field, a baseball field, you name it. And so I was just very, very clear with my and this took time. I didn't do it initially, but coaching clients, for example, if somebody said, okay, the only time I can talk to you is 7:00 on, Friday night or Tuesday night. At first I would say yes to pretty much everything. And then I just said, no, this is how I do business. And I don't work on weekends, and because my kids come first.
Yeah.
And, but it took a little time. Now I don't have a problem doing that. So, but boundaries is key.
Yeah, I totally agree. So this is a great question for you, not just your time with Zig Ziglar, but you've mentioned you've invested a lot in your own professional development over the years. So that's great. You've built that habit and that mindset.
Yes. Oh, yes. And in all areas, not just in, personal development. I gravitate towards that, leadership development, marketing, all of those things I love. So I'm a seminar junkie. I go to conferences a lot, but I also especially in the beginning, I invested in things like the numbers side of the business. I had a coach that was more about that and helping me better to understand things. I invested in a coach to help me on the speaking side. I was already a natural speaker, but I really wanted to hone it. So I hired somebody to help me with that. I hired somebody else on the marketing of the speaking business and all of that. So I've brought in different mentors in different areas. And even if you learn one thing from them, that not one person has all the answers. So that's why I've had multiple. Yeah.
That was the next question on mentors or coaches. You got any other comments there? Or?
Well, I will say this. A lot of times especially or for myself at least, but as a new business owner, sometimes we think everyone else has the answers and we don't. What I found is, although it is important to you always need to have a mentor, a coach, somebody that you can, roll things past, but there does come a point you have to stop learning and start implementing.
Yes.
And your business better than anyone else. And while you can get feedback and opinions, do trust your instincts on things. And that's where I made some mistakes. I trusted some opinions and some directives from people who meant well, but it wasn't necessarily where the direction I should have gone.
Yep.
And I had to learn that lesson is, sometimes I just need to stop asking everyone else for advice and listen to myself or listen to, what wants to be, the bigger coach there. So.
And you mentioned before you've got a board of directors.
I do. And, it's not a big fancy board. It is people who obviously they own businesses and they know a lot about that, but they also know me and personally, and they have me and my best interest at heart. And I value their opinion more than anyone else.
How many are on the board and how often do you meet?
Well, we only have about 5, and some are within the family. And again, because I actually come from a family of all entrepreneurs, so all business owners who've sold businesses. So I have a lot of respect for many of my family members. And we you're putting me on the spot because we were meeting quarterly and we kind of got out of the habit during COVID. So we need to get back into a more consistent structure.
And do you have a chair on that board, or is it?
It is. So I have a partner who would essentially be that role. Now we do meet monthly. That is we have a very consistent meeting on that, but
Right, Michelle, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Oh goodness, there's so many things, but where to go next? What, and really honestly evaluating what's working and what's not working, and being really willing to let go of something that maybe you've put a lot of effort in if it's just not working.
Yes. Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
E-Myth for sure, but then so many through the years on mindset. Of course, anything Zig Ziglar.
Great. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Oh, I listen to so many. My goodness. I kind of go back and forth between more personal development, spiritual development, and leadership. So, and then there are some that combine the two. Craig Rochelle has a great leadership podcast that kind of combines the two. I'm always with my husband and he's listening to, oh goodness, my brain just completely, one of the largest podcasts. I'm totally just having
the business one, like how I built this.
Oh, that's a great one. Yes, actually. My dad was a guest on that show, actually.
Oh, right.
No, anything leadership development specifically, though, I love people-oriented, how to build stronger teams, culture, those kinds of things. I kind of gravitate, but I jump around. I'm not one to just listen to one podcast. I kind of go back.
I'm the same. Out of interest, what was your dad's business
So my brother and my dad owned a business that was a IT, they were in the healthcare industry and they did IT outsourcing, things like that, database systems. And they were really on the cutting edge when all the HIPAA stuff was happening. And so they sold their business, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now. And he wrote a book and I helped him do it called Acquired. And it was all about that. And he was on the podcast a couple of years ago.
Oh, great. Fantastic. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
One tool. Besides time management, tech systems and things like that, I would say a good software program, CRM program. There's so many, there's no right or wrong, but something that is really all inclusive where you can systematize things. I use Infusionsoft Keep, but there's so many out there that basically you set it and forget it and it automates all the
final and my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out?
It's going to be a little harder than you think. And just because you have a passion doesn't mean you will be successful, but it's worth it. And most business owners go out of business within the first 5 years, and just keep plowing, because over time that snowball does start to pick up and roll. That's what I found for myself, at least.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much, Michelle, for your time today. I really appreciated the chat, and congratulations on the growth. Starting 12 years ago, 1 to now about 15 FTE. So I think that's wonderful growth. And you're obviously very passionate about helping people communicate their story and through publishing and speaking. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Troy. I appreciate it.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.